Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our New York Islanders franchise mode here in NHL 25. So, in last episode, if you did not catch it, we had the draft and re-sign stage, and at the draft, we actually had a pretty good draft despite only having 3 selections in that draft, so we ended up picking up some pretty good prospects, 3 low leads to be exact, actually. One of which is going to be probably the best of the bunch, but you can see with our first round selection, we took this guy named Kevin Crane, who is a left wing low elite, 77 overall out of the draft, which is fantastic for an 18-year-old. The only problem I would say is that he's not AHL eligible, so either we get him into the lineup this upcoming season, or we wait basically till the year afterwards. So he's an exciting player, and he's definitely, I think, going to be part of the main future of this team, alongside guys like Anton Frondell, who's obviously probably our best prospect still at the moment, even though he's been playing in the NHL for the last few seasons. We also do still have Prince, obviously, from last year's draft, but we drafted 2 other low leads, these being Pecker and Niilakainen, who are both low leads. One's a forward, one's a defenseman, so nice to add a couple prospects in different sort of areas. So we're starting to build up a little bit of a foundation of prospects to obviously start our rebuild around, which obviously won't be happening this season necessarily, unless we're really bad at the deadline. I probably will wait until next season to officially start to rebuild, or actually the draft coming up this season, to make those decisions. But excited to see what those guys end up developing into. Hopefully, Crane obviously will be making the NHL. I think these 2 guys should be able to make the NHL, but they could also be kind of guys that end up being like 78 overall at the most. So maybe these guys become depth forwards or depth defenders for us. But I'm hoping, obviously, for them to become decent elites. Like if they get really good growth this year, they could easily be in the AHL within the next few seasons, which will give them a better chance to making it to the NHL club, I think, eventually. So I thought it was a pretty good draft, and re-sign stage-wise, we managed to afford everybody back, which was kind of a surprise, because with the amount of cap space we had, I didn't think I was going to be able to afford everybody, but I was able to bring everybody back. I did let go of Semyon Varlamov, though, just because we do have the elite goalies in Khudobin and also Solovyov in the AHL, so I was like, at this point, we don't really need Varlamov, so Khudobin's the only addition, basically, to our lineup for this upcoming season, because everybody else was able to be re-signed with still $3 million in cap space. So we do have money to spend if we want to make any changes in terms of like the deadline coming up, which is nice. So I am very happy that we were able to hold on to this roster, even with giving Anton Frondell a big boy contract. I think it's a pretty good spot. Obviously, like I said, once we go into rebuild territory, though, then we're going to have to start offloading some of the bigger type of guys like Matt Barzal, Bo Horvat, Adam Pelech, but this might be one last run for this team, considering Adam Pelech is a pending free agent at the end of the upcoming season. So at least it seems like with the clauses that we were dealing with early in this franchise mode, that most of the people on this team are now on to the modified no trade clause, so we won't have to deal with anybody being on a no movement clause, except for obviously Noah Dobson, who we re-signed a few years ago. So we have a lot more flexibility with who we can move and where we can move them to, rather than obviously trying to get them to waive their clauses. So I'm happy with the way that this team is starting to get back into being like kind of, well, they're obviously a good team still, but back into like kind of rebuild territory / maybe being a good team again. Obviously, if these guys start to drop off that are old, that'll kind of hurt us a bit, but we do have guys that we can move out now rather than hold on to them for the entire season because of their clauses. So anyways, before we get into free agency in the rest of this offseason, and then also starting up the next season season simulation, let's get into your guys' comments and see what you guys have to say about last episode. So the first comment is from Sound Otaku, says, no need to sign any free agents or make any trades. If you're out of contention at the deadline, you can start making moves to get the rebuild underway. Crane can stay in junior for the season. He will be an important piece, but not right now. And yeah, if we're out of contention by the deadline, obviously, then we could start to tear down it a bit, which is great because, like I said, all those modified no trade clauses now, so we could actually start to move people around and getting like good prospects in return, or picks for that matter. And yeah, I do agree that Crane is going to be a big piece of this team's future. Like, I think him and Frondell will both be really good penalty kill kind of guys for us, because both of them obviously being two-way forwards. So excited to see what they end up developing too. The good thing with Crane is he actually has pretty solid face-off stats, if I remember right. Yeah, he has 78 on face-off, so we might actually be able to get him to also play center as like a secondary position or a primary position, which means maybe those two guys are on the exact same penalty kill unit, maybe they're on opposite units, but regardless, I'm excited to see what those guys develop into in terms of the future of this team. The next comment is from Shankly Mania, who says Finnish pronunciation once again top notch, and I appreciate that, man. I'm actually kind of surprised that I'm actually pretty good with pronouncing names for the most part in the NHL. Like, even if it's like a name that's Finnish or Swedish, for the most part, I could kind of guess on how it's pronounced. Obviously, sometimes it's a little bit weird with, like, I know some letters are pronounced differently in different countries and all that, so that's where I tend to be a little bit off with my pronunciations, but the fact that I was actually able to kind of like sound out Niilakainen is great to see, because hopefully this guy's going to be a future player for our team. Like I was mentioning, he was our last pick of that draft in the 5th round. He wasn't supposed to go to 7th round, but we took him earlier. He's a low elite power forward. He's got maybe okay shooting enough. Like his lowest weakness, I'd say, on him is probably his offensive awareness / defensive awareness. But he basically has like everything above a 60. So I'm hoping that if he gets a lot of growth within 1 year, that maybe this guy could play in our HL team as early as next season. Maybe it's 2 seasons from now, but hopefully he's one of those low elites that get a good amount of growth. The next comment is from Matthew Binger, who says, this is the season to trade away Adam Pelech to get back a first-round pick and a prospect before the trade deadline. So he's saying that this is the year that we should be trading away Adam Pelech before the trade deadline. And I'd say it really depends on how good our team is at that point, because obviously if we're trying to contend, getting rid of an 88 overall defenseman to me really doesn't make a lot of sense. But if we're obviously not doing too well, maybe Adam Pelech is that type of guy that we move out, since he's a pending UFA. It's like the only time we could probably cash in on him before he heads to the free agent market. So yeah, it really depends on how good our team is at that point in time before we decide to make moves. Like right now, Pelech has to stay with us, but like obviously if he's not playing good, then we can move him out. It looks like his morale is quite low compared to the rest of the defenders on the team, but I think obviously maybe it's due to ice time or something like that. Let's see, look, see what it is. Yeah, it says he's unhappy. I can take a look actually at the logs. I can't see because it's in the off season, but I wonder what's kind of making him a little bit unhappy here. But I'm hoping that obviously he plays good out through the season. Maybe he gets his confidence back up there. And like I said, if we're not a good team, we could trade him away. If we're a good team, obviously, I'd prefer to randomly just hold on to him until he becomes a free agent rather than trying to flip him away. And the last and final comment is from Dylan Burrows, who says, sign that first rounder and play him on the 4th line. Trade Duclair for someone at the same stats. Might be a lesser overall, but similar stats. If we're competitive, trade some picks for 2 guys. Even if they don't fit into their tops, they're like top 6, but put him in the top 9 because of a rental. We got to go for a cup. Lost in the finals for the 2nd straight year before we tear it down. And I know you're mentioning about trading Duclair. Well, Duclair is actually traded away already at this point. So I don't know if you're referring to actually Frank Vetrano or somebody like that or not. But I don't think there's any moves that I'm going to be making in this offseason. I just think our team is probably pretty much set in stone, and then we can see how they do to start the season. Obviously, if they're not doing too well, we can make some adjustments. But yeah, Anthony Duclair is already gone from the team, so I don't know who you're referring to. I feel like you're probably referring to Frank Vetrano because we always were mentioning those guys around the same point in time. But I do want to hold on to Frank Vetrano for a little bit longer. He is a pending UFA, has been pretty good with our team for the most part. Like he just came off a career season, so hopefully he could help us out again this upcoming year. So anyways, there is that. I think we're ready to continue to simulate because we aren't going to be doing any free agent signings. We aren't going to be doing any trades. I could do some off-season focuses. Probably will only do a couple of guys though, because we are an old team. So it's like most of these guys are going to start to drop off soon rather than later. So I think we'll only do a couple off-season focuses for our younger guys. So like Anton Frondell. Who else would I do it for? Probably some of the guys in minors like Kudobin as well, who's our backup. Kind of give it to the young guys, and I will show you guys this. Normally I would cut this out of the episode, but I think obviously showing the younger guys would be more important because we're not going to be doing guys like Barzal, who's like 31 years old and probably going to be dropping soon. So let's see. So for Frondell, I do really like his defensive awareness and defensive stats. He's a great two-way forward, but let's just see if he can focus on his defensive game a bit. Let's go with the two-way and see if that will help him a bit. I take a lot of pride in my two-way game already, but I'll use this off-season to master my craft. So yeah, he's already good enough two-way, so he doesn't really need to get better. So maybe we should use our off-season stuff in a different way for him in the future. But I just wanted to make sure he's as good of a two-way forward as possible. And then Kudobin, since this is his first season, I don't really know what to expect from this guy. Let's just go athleticism and see how good he gets. Apparently he's already athletic enough, so we'll have to try on some other things as well, but there's still room for improvement, so he maybe could become a really good athletic goaltender for us. Let's go to the AHL. Zizekas was thrown down there, which is kind of funny. We'll go to Solovyov as well. Like I said, I normally don't show you guys this type of stuff, but I honestly don't care, to be honest, at this point, because it's just younger guys right now. And I feel like this is more beneficial considering we're almost getting closer to the rebuild rather than trying to contend. So you guys can see how I basically help develop some of these players into being good players for our team. So, Nermy's not important. I feel like a lot of the guys in the AHL aren't super important. Obviously, Pratt's kind of important, so we'll definitely see if we could get his offensive game to being even better than it is. So let's just go pass more and see if we could get him to pick up more points, hopefully get some development, because so far in the AHL, he hasn't developed really at all, which is kind of concerning. Viking stats, medium 9. It's not super important. Medvinov has some potential as well, so you consider he's that elite goaltender that's already like 20 years old, I think. Let's just go puck control on him as well. I don't really care what I give him. As long as he's improving, that's good for our team. Alright, so I don't think anybody else is going to get anything. Maybe I'll give actually one to Vikingstad just because he could reach the NHL level. But everybody else is non-important at the moment, so we will just go... Let's just go... Awareness, maybe? Yeah, let's go awareness. Just because offensive awareness is pretty important for some of those young guys, so we might as well try and get them to be better offensively for us. So I think that's all we're going to really do this offseason. Like I said, I'm not going to make any trades, not going to do any signings. I'm just going to hope that this team is good to start the season. If we start to obviously play bad, we could look at making some adjustments accordingly in next episode probably, rather than this episode. So I think we're ready to simulate, so let's go on 1 month and we'll take a look at what type of free agent signings are going around the league, because we're not going to be making any of our own, but I am curious to see if there's been any big signings this offseason. It's kind of fun to take a look at that anyways, so I'm going to remove these guys from my trading block, because right now it's adding some of my good prospects to the block, and obviously since we're going to be going into a rebuild relatively soon, not this season necessarily, unless we obviously are bad at the deadline, I'd rather not move any of my prospects or picks at the moment. I'd rather just see how this team is, and then we can make obviously decisions once we see how this team is on ice, rather than jumping to conclusions too early. So we'll remove everything here. That way we don't get a single offer, hopefully. And that way we don't get interrupted as we simulate. But I'm kind of curious on what type of free agent signings happen this offseason, if there's any trades between teams. Should definitely take a look and see. Alright, so we are now at July 31st of 2028. Let's go ahead and see what signings went around the league. Was there any big signings? Like, where did Varlamov sign? Like, he's definitely going to get a contract, I think. I don't know if he's going to be an NHL goalie for a team, but I'm curious to where he's going to sign. Usually, I think he signs in like teams like Toronto and all that, so we'll be interested to see where he goes. But in terms of off-season trades, there was a few already. Eric Howell got dealt to Edmonton. Faravari got dealt to Columbus. Boone Jenner going to Tampa Bay. Interesting. And then Adam Lowry going to the Edmonton Oilers from Winnipeg. So that's an interesting offseason so far for the Oilers, adding 2 centermen and basically just giving up some prospects and a pick. And then in terms of signings this offseason, any interesting signings? Just going to scroll through this. If I see anything crazy, I will obviously mention it, but you guys can let me know in the comments too if you see anything that I miss. Is there any crazy signings? It wasn't a huge free agent class, but I'm still kind of curious. Bobrovsky re-signed in Florida on a 1-year deal. Short signed in Boston. I just saw a lot of decent names. Tanner Jeannot just went back to Nashville. That's kind of interesting. He's not a big name, but still. Jacob Vrana to Tampa isn't really a huge one, because he's not as good anymore. James Reimer to Edmonton. Okay. Anything else kind of crazy? David Savard to LA. Okay. Colin Miller goes to Buffalo. I think he played in Buffalo at one point, if I remember right. Oh, man. Braden Shen to Carolina. That's an interesting one. But Cole's in a San Jose. Realistic, I'd say. Jan Mark to Pittsburgh. What else we got here? Nico Sturma going back to Minnesota. It's interesting. Freddie Anderson to Boston. Okay. Don't know why they need him as a backup behind Swayman, but I'll take it. Barrett Hayton in New Jersey. Eric Howell actually signed with the Rangers before he was dealt, so it's another one of those sign and trade kind of things, it seems like. Hayden Fleury to Pittsburgh, so there's another Fleury in Pittsburgh now. Nino Niederreiter in San Jose, Perron in Florida. Kopitar signed with the Oilers, damn. So Edmonton is loading up on centers quite a bit. They made a couple of trades for centers, and they bring in Anze Kopitar, so they have some pretty good depth down the middle now with McDavid too, obviously, right? So that's interesting. I don't know how good Kopitar is at this point, but that's kind of weird that Kopitar's left LA. Didn't expect him to leave the LA Kings, but I guess they decided to let him go. Boston brings in Jamie Benn. Patrick Kane signed in Vancouver. That's a strange one, to say the least. Our former guy, Kyle Palmieri, is now off to LA. Okay. Anything that I do want to mention. Max Domi to Anaheim. Okay. Ryan O'Reilly to Pittsburgh. Solid addition. Ty Dellandrea to Washington. Yeah, there's not really any huge names this offseason. Oh boy, Claude Giroux signed in Toronto. That would be the worst thing, because Claude Giroux being a guy that's from close to Ottawa, and obviously playing in Ottawa right now, I would not want to see him in Toronto. I just would not. Kevin Hayes signs in Ottawa, so Ottawa basically let go of Claude Giroux so they could bring in Kevin Hayes. Two guys that are former teammates, I guess, in Philadelphia, I would assume. And Brad Marchand signed in Pittsburgh with Jeff Skinner. That's kind of interesting. So some kind of weird offseason moves, it seems like. Michelli signed in LA. Anything else? We're near the bottom of this. Evander Kane went back to the Winnipeg Jets. That's kind of funny. That's kind of funny. Because I'm pretty sure he didn't have a good time when he was in Winnipeg/Atlanta. Ryan Lindgren signs in Ottawa on a 5-year deal as well. New Hook to the Rangers. Brodin to Utah. Barbashev to Boston. Spencer Knight goes to New Jersey on a 6-year deal after his time in Florida. That's pretty insane. So I wonder how Florida's goaltending is going to be. And a Trevor Moore to Calgary. All right, so those are the off-season moves. I don't really care too much about August because August isn't really an important month. I will still probably take a look at where Varlamov signs at the start of the season, though. But let's go. Actually, let's just go sim to next season already. And I am curious to see how good Khudobin is for the start of next year, because he's definitely going to be the guy that takes over for Sorokin when we go into the rebuild at the beginning. Obviously, we do have the high elite in the system still, too, so we have some really good goaltenders, and obviously one of them probably will end up being a starter. The other one will probably have to get traded away at some point, my guess. Depends on really how okay they are of being a backup goaltender and all that. So let's get our lineup set up for the upcoming season, and obviously we'll get into the scene where Varlamov signed and start a little bit of the season sim, not too much, but a little bit of it. So goaltenders, we got Sorokin and Khudobin. Khudobin is actually still listed as a minor starting goalie as a 79, but he's probably pretty close to being a backup goaltender for us, which is nice. Will be interesting to see what he could do. He's a goalie, which is kind of funny. He's only played 1 year in the AHL, and he didn't make the playoffs, but he was relatively okay. Had a below 500 record, 904 save percentage, 2.96 goals against. We didn't have the strongest AHL team, so not expecting him to put up crazy numbers, but he's going to be our new backup goaltender behind Sorokin. In the system, Solovyov up to a 76. He's going to start in the AHL. Medvedov, who's to 59, will be the backup. It's because he's already 21 years old, so might as well get him in while he has a chance to potentially still make the NHL. So a lot of good goalies in our NHL team and AHL team, but obviously at some point, Sorokin could be getting dealt considering he has a modified no trade. I don't know if it's going to be this season. It depends if we make the playoffs or not, but he has a good chunk of teams that he could go to, which is nice. From a defensive standpoint, we have Dobson and Pollock. We have Romanov, Pelech, who's dropped down to an 82. That's kind of weird. I don't know if that's morale related or if it's just ice time related, something like that. Hopefully he goes back up a bit. Broberg, and then probably we're looking at Johnson because Scott Mayfield's dropped off a lot. He's probably going into his last season. I feel like I have seen him retire at 35 before, but Mayfield's probably on his last legs here, which will free us up some cap space this offseason, which is good. But I'd assume we probably will end up playing Johnson over him just because he's younger and higher overall. We'll see. In the system, doesn't really matter too much, but it looks like this. Pratt is up to a 73, so he actually did maybe get a little bit of growth, which is good. But he is still kind of growing a little bit slower than I would have liked, to be honest. Right wing side of things, Bjorkstrand, Vetrano, Holmstrom, Obey-Kabul, William Dufour. I don't mind using William Dufour as a depth option over Maggio. Yeah, Maggio was okay last season, but Dufour is more physical, which suits a bit more of that kind of role player, so I'll keep him up here, I think. Frondell and Wood, what do we got in the minors? That's fine. What about centers? Barzal, Horvat, Nelson, Parsonen, Gord, and Mountstein. Zizekas probably should be up here, though, so we got to call up him. And we did need an Ep for it anyways, so that's good. Let's go best lines in the HL. And let's get our team set up for this upcoming season. All right, so first line is going to end up being, I guess, yeah, like this. Wait a second. Get Barzal up here. Get this set up like that. Yeah, something like that for our top 6 for sure. Third line looks pretty much the same as last year. Fourth line as well. I guess I could keep Beck in as a fourth liner, and then Zizekas is just going to be a depth forward for us. Unfortunately. Yeah, that's okay. I mean, Parson's not the best at faceoffs, though. Beck isn't even better than him, though. That's where I would probably put Zizekas in over one of these guys, but honestly, Zizekas has dropped off enough, so we'll probably keep it like that, even though it's not a good face-off man, really. And then, aside from that, we'll probably go with something like this. Mayfield makes it a -2 still in that top 6. Oh, yeah, that's because we lost Drew Doughty to retirement. I forgot about that. Johnson in that spot, it makes it only a -1, so we'll probably go to something like that. And then goaltenders will be Sorokin and Khudobin. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. It's pretty similar to last year. And it will be interesting to see how this team sims. So, Frondell, Horvat, Barzal, Vetrano, Nelson, Bjorkstrand, Wood, Gord, Holmstrom, Obey-Kabul, Parsonen, and Malmstein. Like I said, I don't really like that Parsonen's the fourth line center just because of the fact he can't win faceoffs that well. But Beck can't either. So, do we find ourselves a new fourth line center in next episode already? How good is Obey-Kabul? Third has 65 as well. All these guys could take faceoffs as a position, which is nice, but none of them are actually super strong on that, so maybe we would look to do something there, but obviously it depends on how good or how bad that line simulates. And then from a defensive standpoint, it looks fine. Goaltending, Sorokin and Khudobin, yeah. I think it looks good. So I think we're probably ready to get into simulating some, but obviously I got to take a look at where Varlamov signed. Just got to make sure these power play lines are good enough. I should probably have Dobson on the first unit. And then Frank Vetrano could be on the second unit. Just don't want to make sure we have too much forwards on one unit, you know. Because then it's a bit of a risk for shorthanded goals probably against. So we'll go with Vetrano on this unit instead at the point with Pollock, Wood, Holmstrom, Nelson. Kind of a weird power play unit, but it's okay. Penalty kill looks good in terms of chemistry. Yeah, I think everything's looking nice. So I think this team probably should simulate good again. For sure. It's just a little bit risky not having a guy that could actually win faceoffs considerably like Zizekas, because he still has 80 on faceoffs, so he could definitely still win faceoffs better than those guys, but the thing is these guys can't be scratched, really, I don't think. I mean, Parson and Kenton, kind of, because he's actually a depth forward. Same with Obey-Kabul, but I don't know if I would do that. AHL, is there anybody that needs to be put in the lineup? No, there isn't, apparently. That's good. We do have too much defenders down there compared to forwards, so we still need more forward prospects, but that's okay. And Pratt was, for some reason, thrown to the top 6. I don't know why. Is he on the power play? He is. Okay, that's good. Just got to make sure Pratt gets as much ice time as possible because he needs to develop. And an Alexander Solovyov, the starting goaltender, the high elite. So that's interesting. And Medvedov backing up. Okay. I think we're ready for, let's see where Varlamov signed, and we're ready to start up the sim, which is exciting. So where did Varlamov sign? Where did he sign? I'm going to guess it has to be some sort of a good team. Like Florida, technically, if they just lost Spencer Knight, I could see him going there too, but I'm not too sure. Because I'm not even sure if he's going to be an NHL goalie for whoever he signs with. He could be an AHL goalie, because he was looking for a two-way contract, but we just didn't really need him at this point anymore. So, in terms of goalies, let's see. Semyon Varlamov actually did not sign anywhere. Damn, so he's actually still a free agent. That's kind of interesting because I feel like we could re-sign him if we wanted to have like a depth goaltender, but we don't really have the roster space. That kind of sucks that he didn't get a contract. I mean, he could still sign in the beginning of the season, but kind of surprised he actually stayed around in free agency longer than anticipated. All right, well, get your bets in. How good is this team going to do this season? Obviously, we're not going to simulate the entire season in this episode, but We definitely are going to simulate probably, I'd say, like to December the 1st, maybe January the 1st. I don't really know exactly. Really depends on how this team does. But first, our head coach, what does he think about our roster on paper? He thinks our team's good enough to compete for the Stanley Cup again. I like that. I like that. We will definitely try and get back to that Cup Finals again. If we make it for the third consecutive year and lose again, though, that'd be really terrible. But I think this team's good, and it has a little bit of a flavor of youth, like I said, with the backup goaltender now. So we are going to get to at least see some of our guys that are going to be part of our rebuild in action, which is exciting. So let me actually go to the unsigned players for a second on our roster. I am curious if Crane got any growth during the offseason or not. No, he's still 77. Okay, that's fine. That is fine. I'm curious on what he's going to be like by the end of the season. Drop your predictions, actually, considering that's a few episodes away. What do you think for Crane's overall would be by the end of the season in terms of growth? Like, do you think he's going to be an 82, 83 for his rookie year? Because I feel like he could be. All right, so let's get into this and see what we could do. Hopefully we can string together some W's to start the season. Obviously the preseason first, though. Not going to matter too much, but hopefully we get some good results from like the young guys and stuff that are in the lineup. And hopefully the old guys don't fall off too hard. That's the one thing I'm a little bit worried about. Is old guys like Brock Nelson just dropping off a cliff, or Adam Pelech, or Ryan Pollock, all the guys pretty much on the roster, considering how old this team is. Like, I'm kind of curious on our average age as a team. So 4-2-1 in the preseason in 7 games. Let's see who led in points. It was Anton Frondell. I was feeling like it was going to be a young guy. 9 points during the preseason for him. It's pretty good. I'll definitely take that. I actually should take a look at the entire team to see if there's anybody that really didn't do good in the preseason. Technically, I could do season goals, but I think at this rate, I'm going to do the same thing as what I did in my Albuquerque episode if you guys didn't watch that. I'm just going to let the guys play, not give them any season goals, because I feel like it could put too much pressure on the guys to achieve things. Let them play, and we'll see how good they do. And then we could actually do that type of thing for future seasons. But yeah, Frondell led the way in the preseason, and then Bjorkstrand was good. Looks like in general the depth scoring was pretty solid on the forward side of things in the preseason. Everybody had a point. Bo Horvat was pretty bad, though. Only 1 assist through 7 games. Kind of surprised on that. What about defensively? Broberg had 6 points in the preseason. All right. Maybe Broberg's going to have a big year. Romanov as well. All right. What about goalies? Ooh, okay, Kudobin. I really hope he's not that bad in his first season. A 678 in the preseason through 2 games. Well, it was through actually how much minutes did he play? Or does it even say? It's 75 minutes, so it was a game in 15 minutes, basically. God damn, that's terrible. That's a really terrible preseason for this guy. I'm really kind of scared about that, because he didn't have the best numbers in the AHL last year, but to start off your NHL kind of career with a preseason like that, normally in real life, I think he would have got sent down after a preseason like that, but I feel like he's going to be better during the actual regular season, because I have seen some good backup numbers in this game so far, so hoping that he could maybe put up at least a 9-10 save percentage in his rookie year, considering he's not going to get that much starts by comparison to Sorokin. Like, Sorokin's definitely going to get majority of the games. All right, so let's go to the end of October. Like I said, I think we'll go to like December the 1st or so, but it really depends on how good this team's simulating. If we're playing really bad, maybe we stop the sim early. If we're playing good, maybe we just keep it the same for a little bit longer. We don't know. But let's see what we do in our first month of action. We beat Carolina to start the season. That's nice. Good little 3-2 win. We didn't lose to Detroit 5-2. St. Louis 4-2 loss. Pittsburgh 1-0 win. Okay, a little bit inconsistent. 4-1 win over San Jose. 4-1 win over Buffalo. 4-3 win over Tampa. So now we're starting to click together a little bit. 2 of our third round picks to Philadelphia with the bottom 6 forward Galiev for a 3rd and a 4th. That's kind of a weird offer. Not going to accept it, but okay. And then we lose to Dallas. So 5-3 in our first 8 games. Not necessarily the best start in the world, but we have found our consistency more later on in seasons than earlier on, I feel like. So maybe this team's going to have a really good November and be well above 500 at that point. But we are second place currently in the Metro. So things are looking okay so far, but hopefully we can find a little bit more consistency to our game. All right, let's go to the 1st of December, see where we're at that point. And then we'll make a decision if we want to simulate a little bit more or not. But I'm hoping that this team could kind of find itself a little bit here. 3-2 win over Detroit, all right. Bo Horvat was never injured. Game against Toronto, we win that one. Columbus, we lose that one. It's okay. Game against Ottawa, it's another loss. Tampa's another loss. Philadelphia is another loss. Oh boy, now we're below 500. Okay. And Yanni Gordon gets injured with a sore knee. Okay, so it seems like there is a little bit of problems with the sim so far. We've now dropped a total of 6 straight games. And we're 7-9. Yikes. Do I make any line adjustments yet or just simulate the rest of the month? I think I'm just going to simulate the rest of the month and see first, but there might be some issues for sure. But I'm not sure what. There's a nice win over Anaheim, though, 6-0, so maybe it's just still that inconsistent factor with her team. There's a good win, too. Good win again. 3 great defensive games in a row. And then we lose to Boston as Gord is back. I assume people are dropping off on our team, and that's maybe some of the problem, is because we're such an old team. Like, the legs aren't like they used to be, you know? Like, definitely Yanni Gord's not as strong as he used to be. Ooh, not playing the best either. So, maybe we need a new third-line center. And then Parsonen, maybe we change him into, or try and find somebody else for that fourth line. Djibril Touré is on waivers. I mean, he's a young defenseman, right? 25 years old. He's not terrible, to be honest, for an undrafted defenseman. But I don't think we need him, considering we already have some defensemen, so I'm not going to claim him. Game against Toronto is a win there. And the Rangers is a loss. So 11-11 in our first 22 games. I feel like I don't know what the problem is right now with the team. Let's see. What's our underlining numbers looking like? We are 19th in goals for, 6th in goals against. So we're a good defensive team right now, apparently, but we can't score. And then we're also really good on the PK. We're 3rd in the league. We're really bad on the power play. Interesting. So good defensive team, but not good offensively. Rizzy definitely should be still the head coach, I think, right? 65%. Can't demote him because we have too much coaches and stuff like that. His last year, how good did he simulate with us? I can't even remember. I don't want to go to team meeting. I could go to game plan and see if he's wanting to try some other things, but I don't know. Let's see. Last year, he was our head coach, right? No, he wasn't. This is his first year as our head coach. Wasn't he? Who was our head coach last year, then? Did we lose a coach or no? I'm kind of concerned about that. But if I drop down and any of these coaches, our team's going to do maybe even worse. We probably just got to hope that Rizzy continues to win us games, but I probably will simulate one more month, and if we're well above 500 at that point, I won't be too concerned, but I think our offense is very inconsistent. I really do like our defensive play so far this season, though, I guess. But yeah, let's go to the 15th, see if we can be much more better above 500 at that point. Because I don't want to make any adjustments too early on here. Shootout loss, regulation loss, still kind of simulating weird. I don't want to simulate too much, and then we're way out of the playoff mix. Another loss. Okay, I think we're going to definitely stop simulating halfway through December here. And of course, after I said that, we win 2 more games. So we're kind of still having that problem we had a few years ago where we were just very inconsistent. But maybe that's what we need. We just need to barely make the playoffs and then we can win the cup rather than like be a really good team. Because we have been like a top 3 team in the league or top 5 team in the league. And we make it to the cup finals and lose. So maybe we want to find a way to be a team that under-simulates and then wins in the playoffs instead. Because, yeah, our division is so tight right now that technically we're only like 1 point back of a wildcard spot at this point in time. So we're not terribly far out of it, but it's just been inconsistent after inconsistencies. Like, during this 4 games during the week, I feel like we're going to only win like 2 of them and lose 2 of them or something like that. But, you know what, we're going to go to the end of December at this point. Because I just don't know what to make of this team right now. But we'll definitely take a look at some stats and see if there's any underlying problems a bit. There's 4 straight wins. See, now all of a sudden we're playing good again. 5 straight wins. Game against Columbus. And who is this on waivers? Jonathan Meyerberg? Yeah, Meyerberg. I thought so. It's kind of stupid that I know some of these guys' names. Not going to claim him. He's pretty much the exact same thing as Touré was. We beat Columbus. So, like, look at that. After a really bad stretch, we just won 6 games in a row. Let's go through these last 3 games of December, and then we'll take a look at some stats. There's another win. 7 games in a row. So the team might have finally found itself again. It just takes a little bit longer than normal. And then we lose to Buffalo, and we lose to Chicago, of course. So maybe it's because of the amount of hockey we played also in the last 2 years, because you got to think of it. We've gone to 2 straight Cup finals, so maybe a lot of the guys that are on this team, the older guys, are a little bit slower than they were last year. So I don't know, because we played so much hockey. But we are in a wild card spot at the moment, so we could definitely still make the playoffs, but we definitely need to be more consistent with our efforts and not like losing multiple games after going on a good little winning streak. All right, let's take a look at some stats and see what's been going good for us so far. So first and foremost, we are now 24th in offense, so it has improved a bit. We are 4th in goals against, 32nd on the power play. So our power play is dead last in the league, but we got the 3rd best penalty kill. So I knew we do have a defenseman coach, it said. Do we need more of a generalist? So that way our power play actually simulates good in our 5-on-5 offense. Because our power play has been really bad despite the most skill level it has on it. Brock Nelson leading us in points with 31. All right. Let's take a look at some stats here. I'm just curious on all this type of thing. Yeah, we're in an okay spot right now, but definitely only 109 goals for is not good enough. We should be scoring more than that. But I expected it's because we're kind of getting older. Like, everybody on this team's under point per game. But it looks like we have a lot of plus players. Like, Brock Nelson's on 22 goals, so he just says, hey, man, we need to win a Stanley Cup. So he's definitely trying to lead by example, because we only have 109 goals as a team. He has 22 of them. So, like, pretty much, like, 1/5 of the goals that we've scored have been him, which is kind of insane. Matt Barzal on 29 points, Horvat on 23, Gord only on 9. So, yeah, that drop-off from Yanni Gord, kind of expected because of his age. I do expect him to retire before his contract ends, but maybe we look for another third-line center. Yanni Gord could be maybe more of a depth option. I'm not too sure. Malstein on 8 points. Parsonen on 8 points. Zizekis' point per game is a depth option. That's not too bad. But the plus-minuses look good because we're such a good defensive team. Left wing side of things, Frendell's on 29 points. Not too bad. We have Miles Wood on 8 points. Only 2 goals. So, yeah, there's definitely some drop-off of some of these guys in their scoring a bit. Because last year, Miles Wood scored 20-something? 15. So we need a little bit more out of those type of guys if we can. Right wing side of things, Bjorkstrand's only on 9 goals but 29 points. Vetrano's on 27. Holmstrom's on 17. I believe he's a pending free agent. Yeah, he is. Obekabul's on only 3. Yeah, I think we might need some more offensive player, but I'm not too sure what. Dobson's on 30 points. He's been good. Romanov's on 12. Pellick's on 9. Pollock's on 8. Johnson's on 7, but a -10. And Broberg's on 5 and a -11. So that top 6 pairing, which is usually pretty good with Scott Mayfield in, has been pretty bad defensively. So that's another area we could look to address and make us even better defensively if we want to. But, I mean, we've already been good defensively. It's just this pairing has been pretty bad, apparently. Goaltending-wise, wow. So aside from Sorokin's numbers looking way worse than last season, so Sorokin's kind of dropping off a little bit, which is not good. Nikita Khudobin, despite his terrible preseason, has been elite. 5-1 in his first 8 games. He already has his first career shutout, a .950 save percentage, and a 1.63 goals against average. He's been really, really good. Obviously, those numbers are probably going to change in the next 2 episodes or so, but Sorokin needs to find his game a bit. Like, we might be one of the best defensive teams, but he hasn't been that great. It's because of Khudobin now we've been able to maybe be better than anticipated. It's kind of weird. All right. Was not expecting that from the goalies. So there is our stats so far. Who is the worst plus-minus on the team? Parson on a -4. Worst offensive player right now, we said Obekabul with 3 points, only 1 goal. Yeah, we definitely need some sort of scoring in that bottom 6, I think, a bit. But I'm not too sure who. Let's go to the AHL here quickly. Take a look at some stats from our younger guys that matter a little bit. So, like, Viking stats on 9 points only. Looks like the AHL isn't scoring a ton. Defensively, Pratt's on 26 points. So he's actually playing good again. And then goaltending, Solovyov's on a 908. That's not bad. Medvedov's on a 915. Ooh, Solovyov's up to a 78 now, so he's almost ready to jump up in the NHL as well. So, It would be weird if we traded Sorokin this season and literally ran 2 young goalies instead, but obviously I'm not going to trade Sorokin just yet because I think he can still find his game a bit, but he definitely hasn't been that guy so far this year. So, all right. Well, we might have to make some adjustments. Get more depth scoring in our bottom 6. Get a new top 6 defenseman maybe instead of Ryan Johnson and put Mayfield down to the minors. I'm not really too sure. But let's see what we got. We don't have a ton of cap space too, but let's take a look at the block. So that way we could kind of see if there's any moves we want to make next episode. Because maybe we'll simulate the rest of the season in the next episode depending on how good this team is. Is there any good kind of depth scoring options? Or top 6 defensive options? Mackenzie Weegar's too good. Alexiev is not really what I'm looking for an upgrade on defense. Harvey Pinard is a bottom 6 option. How has he been? 26 points in 35 games. That's actually pretty good. It's pretty good. Interesting. Yeah, RHP might be okay as a depth option down in the bottom 6, but I'm not too sure if he'll provide offense for us really that much. Aside from that, is there anything else? Michael Misa's still on the block. Looks like they took Iginla off the block unless he got dealt. That's interesting. What else we got here? Nothing in Colorado. Looks like a lot of prospects, to be honest. Chinnikov might be an okay depth option for scoring a little bit. He has been pretty good this year, but in the AHL, 82 overall depth forward. I feel like he's pretty similar to Parsonen in that sense. And, not really sure if I'm seeing really anything that would help us out with those areas we need. Like, maybe our team will just correct itself, but right now, those seem to be our most underlying problems. David Savard is a top 6 defensive option. Not really a huge upgrade. Yeah, there's not really too much big-name players, which kind of sucks. Patrick Laine, but he's making $6 million for, like, a bottom 6 forward. That's not great. Third line scoring 40. He's only got 12 goals. He would be good. I don't know if he's losing morale in Montreal. But, yeah, he wouldn't even come here anyways. He doesn't want to come to New York. Pontus Holmberg. Might be okay. He does have 1 year left. Not a huge offensive threat, though. Had 42 points last year in Toronto. So far, Montreal is having a tough time. He might have been playing with better players in Toronto. Nashville. Nothing really. New Jersey. Nothing really. Man, there's not a lot. Braden Schneider's a DFD. Keandre Miller's okay, but I think he's probably too good for us to bring in. Perunovic. Yeah, I'm not really too sure if there's anything that's going to help us with the offense from that bottom 6. Bobby Brink. That's not terrible. He only has 3 goals in 11 games. Doesn't get a lot of ice time, but he does have good shooting categories and stuff like that. Like, has he ever played pretty good? 12 points in 63 games. He's like a fringe NHLer in this. He's kind of an intriguing player, but he's a depth forward, so I don't know how good he would be in a bottom 6 role. Skinner, who was brought in the offseason, has been okay in Pittsburgh, but I don't really know if he'd be the type of guy we'd look to. Yeah, I'm feeling like we might have to wait longer. I mean, there is William Eklund, but William Eklund would not fit anywhere on our team right now. Like, he would be a good for a rebuild, but he's got too much value as well. And I'm not giving up first-round picks, so... we might have to start tearing it down sooner rather than later, too. Depending on how our team is doing. But yeah, William Eklund's pretty damn solid. Askarov's on the block, too, for goalies. Mikhail Granlund's not much of anything. What else we got here? Seattle. Brandon Montour could help with the offense on the defensive side of things for sure. But he'd have to get top 4 minutes. Burakovsky is way too good for like a bottom 6 role. And probably way too much trade value. Yeah. Chandler Stevenson's probably not going to provide a lot of offense. Yeah, 6 points only. Yeah, there's not really too much of what we're actually trying to look for, unfortunately. So we might just have to rework our lines a bit or something like that. Like, that's something we could look towards doing. There is John Tavares still on the block if you guys want me to bring Tavares back to New York. But I feel like it would cost us more than we want to bring him in. Has good offensive stats this season. Only 6 goals, but 26 points. Has been playing on the power play, though. Yeah, I don't know about bringing Johnny T back to New York. He might just have to retire. He doesn't actually even want to come here, which is hilarious, so... He would go to the Rangers, though. Imagine if he gets dealt to the Rangers. That would just be ridiculous. David Kampf, I don't think will give us offense, but he does have 18 points so far in Toronto. He's not a bad kind of bottom six option. Like, if we wanted to upgrade Yanni Gourde, we turn it into David Kampf, basically. Yanni Gourde becomes, like, a depth option, I guess, basically, because we'd have to get rid of Parson if we wanted to keep him in the lineup. Matthew Joseph, kind of, but he's not... he's been okay offensively in Utah. 23 points. Yeah, he's not a bad offensive player, to be honest. But I don't really know if he's what I'm looking for fully. He is a top 6 forward, basically. Taylor Hall is a bottom 6 option. He's pretty old at this point. Still has 20 points, though. So he's not been bad either. Huh. So there is interesting options, but I feel like some of them are going to be hurting us in cap reasons and stuff. But yeah, I don't think it's the best trading block yet. Like, it's probably not the best time to make any trades. Like, if we're going to make any trades, we might have to actually wait till the deadline. Radek Faxa, not going to bring offense. Like, there's not... Oh, there is Ovi still at 43 years old. Tom Wilson as well. How good has Tom Wilson been? 25 points. Tom Wilson's pretty damn good, but doesn't fit our system that well. Would he come here? Yes, he would come here, but I feel like he's got too much value. Alex Ovechkin is dirt cheap, and he still puts up a lot of points. 27 points, 32 games. Do we take away the grade 8 away from Washington and bring him to New York? He's only signed for the 1 year. We can afford him cap-wise, too. We play him on the third line instead of, like, Miles Wood. Miles Wood goes to the fourth line. We scratch Beck Mallenstein. It could work. We'd basically be turning it to the Washington Capitals, though, with Ovechkin, Mallenstein, Obey-Kabul. That might be okay. It might be okay to trade for Ovechkin. I just feel like it's weird taking him away from the Caps, but it could be something we look to. Neil Pionk as an offensive defenseman hasn't been good offensively, unfortunately. He would be interesting, though. Provorov, Those other guys are too high cap-wise. I think the only one I would maybe bring in right now is Ovechkin, but I feel like we might need to wait another episode or so before we decide to make any huge changes, but we definitely need goal scoring. Like I said, if we do bring in Ovechkin, if we go to edit lines here, he could play on the third line and he could get some power play time as well. We take Miles Wood and move him down to the fourth line, consider he's a checking forward. And then we scratch Beck, basically, or we would have to trade Beck maybe back to Washington. Or we trade away Parson and move Beck to center, move Obey-Kabul to center. We could literally have a Washington Capitals bottom six almost in that sense. And then we could still try and upgrade that third line center spot too, and that top six defense pairing. Yeah, it's really tough. And then, like I said, Sorokin's been pretty bad so far this season, so... That's kind of an interesting one. I expect him to play better as the season goes on, but we definitely have some tough decisions to make. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our New York Islanders franchise mode. So in next episode, we'll probably simulate up to a day before the deadline. We probably won't simulate past the deadline yet, just because I think we need to still understand better how our team is going to simulate. We'll maybe make some trades depending on if you guys think it's already a good time to trade for Ovechkin, but I definitely think our offense needs more. Our defensive play, probably not as much. Like, even though we have a minus pairing, I think we are okay with that. I think it's just the offense that's the main thing. We need to score more goals, so that way we could get maybe better goaltending results too, because maybe our goaltenders will feel safer with a big lead. I don't really know, but some really weird results so far this season. Hopefully it finds itself a little bit more so in the next episode. But let me know down below, and I'll see you guys next time.